Okay, Tom Huane. Alright Tom, from the clip you've just watched, can you describe the strengths and weaknesses of the performer selected, prioritise the major weakness, and design an action plan to improve this, apply physiological, psychological and sociological theory where possible to support your evaluation. Okay, good luck.
The player that I was analysing was the midfielder for the Black and Reds. He had quite a few skills, strengths and weaknesses. One strength was his tackling, because he had his non-tackling foot planted on the ground for balance and stability. He had his tackling foot in an L shape, and he had his knees bent for a low centre of gravity, meaning that he could change direction. And when he won the ball, this shows that he had a good reaction time, because he was able to tell where the ball was going to go. Also, shooting was a strength for the player, because when he took a free kick, he got the ball on target and forced the keeper to make a save. Whilst kicking the ball, his non-kicking foot was beside the ball. He had his arms out for balance, and he had his head over the ball to keep the ball down. Whilst he was kicking the ball, shooting, his ankle was in plantar flexion. His ankle is a hinge joint connecting the tibia, fibula and the talus. So the movement for the plantar flexion was caused by the concentric contraction of the gastrocnemius, and which is the agonist muscle, and the antagonistic muscle was the tibius anterior, which lengthened. This free kick was brought by a foul, which is codification introduced by the FA, which was founded in 1863 as a result of the university melting pot, which later became the Cambridge Rules in the 1840s and led to the evolution of the FA in 1863. Long passing was also a skill for the player, because he performed an instep drive well, meaning that he kicked the ball with his laces on the midline of the ball, in the centre, just below the midline of the ball, meaning that the ball had enough height and power to get to his player. This ball was played in behind the defence, which shows good tactical awareness, because he was able to play his attacker in from kick-off, forcing the opponents to play back with their facing towards their own goal. Also, his aerobic endurance was a strength, because he was able to keep up with play both attacking and defending, and he didn't look tired throughout. This is probably because football is mainly an aerobic sport, so they're mainly doing aerobic training. This therefore helps them to have a large amount of muscle and liver glycogen within their muscles, readily used for ATP resynthesis. This is linked to during football there are three energy systems that are used along a continuum. These are the aerobic energy system, the lactic energy system and the ATP-PC system. But predominantly it is the aerobic system that's used, and this is made up of 3 stages. Stage 1 is aerobic glycolysis, which takes place in the muscle sarcoplasm. Stage 2 is the Krebs cycle, which takes place in the matrix of the mitochondria. And stage 3 is the electron transport chain, which takes place in the cristae of the mitochondria. This produces an overall 38 ATP, which is larger than the other 3 energy systems. A good tactic that the player had was that he pressed opponents and put pressure on them, so that he didn't allow them time on the ball, which forces them to play the ball quickly, and therefore leads to mistakes that his team can then regain possession of the ball. Also, his weaknesses. One weakness was his dribbling, because he didn't have his head up. He lost the ball whilst he was dribbling. He didn't have his head up to see where the opponents were or where his teammates were. However, he did have his knees bent, and he did have his head over the ball, which helped him to control the ball. However, he didn't have the ball close enough to his body, and he didn't protect it. He didn't protect it with his body, by which I mean putting his body in between the ball and the opponent. His dribbling his short passing was a weakness, because he did have his non-striking foot beside the ball. However, he didn't have his arms out for balance. He gave the ball away whilst his team had just won possession in their own half, which puts them then under pressure again to defend. He didn't have a firm 90 degrees L shape with his foot whilst he was kicking the ball, and he didn't kick the ball in the centre and the midline of the ball, so the ball went to an opponent and was intercepted rather than going to a teammate. His heading was a weakness because he misjudged the trajectory of a ball in the air from a goal kick, showing that and meaning that he also didn't jump, so he didn't head the ball at the highest point. And therefore, the header wasn't going to go to a teammate. Also, he didn't arch his back to generate enough power when jumping and heading for the ball, and his neck wasn't firm. Another weakness that I saw was that his dynamic flexibility was a weakness, because when he outstretched his leg to reach a ball, he couldn't make it, so his opponent was able to get the ball and go past him. This may be because the hip joint is a deep ball and socket joint, and surrounded by large muscle mass, so that the range of movement is restricted, especially in dynamic flexibility when that relates to the speed of the movement. A tactical weakness was that his positioning wasn't very effective, because he sat too deep in front of the defence, meaning that they couldn't get the ball, and which is important to retain possession, therefore not allowing them space to be given the ball. Also, he doesn't come and show short for the ball, meaning that his team have to go long rather than keep the ball and keep possession, which is key in order to stop the other team attacking. So the priority weakness that for this player would be his short passing, because, as I said, his technique wasn't correct, so his ankle wasn't locked in a firm L shape, 90 degrees, and he didn't look up when passing the ball to see that the player he was passing to had men around him, and his pass was intercepted. This short passing is important for a midfielder, because they're important players needed to link attack and defence. They're also important in order to keep possession of the ball and control the intensity of the game. Therefore, you are attacking your opponents aren't attacking you, because you've got the ball. So in order to see if there's an improvement, I would calculate the pass percentage completion rate before the action plan and after the action plan, to see if there was any improvement made. The timescale would be 8 weeks, twice a week, starting at 20 minutes. It would be straight after the warm-up, so there is no fatigue. The benefit of a warm-up would be to increase heart rate, and whilst doing some maximum aerobic work, the muscle elasticity increases, therefore the risk of injury is reduced. The timescale is a mesocycle because it's between 4 to 16 weeks, and it's a medium-term objective because it would be mid-season. So the principle of moderation would therefore be used in order to reduce the risk of musculoskeletal injuries and reduce the risk of mental fatigue, which stops there being overloaded in training. Throughout, I would use positive reinforcement in order to strengthen the SR learning bond, and this also helps to increase the motivation of the performer. At first, I'll do this for 20 minutes after the warm-up, and I'll be passing to a teammate 10 yards away, using the correct technique. So, looking up to see where your teammate is, striking the ball with enough momentum through the midline of the ball, with your arms out for balance. I'll progress this by changing the distances from 5 to 10 yards, varying the distance, so the player has to concentrate on how much power they are putting into the ball in order to reach the teammate. I would later progress this by using the non-dominant foot if the coach deems it acceptable, and see that the player is performing the skill well. The purpose of this will be for repetition of the correct technique, so that it becomes habitual and is stored in a long-term memory. I would then progress this to 25 minutes a session, so the players are passing in a triangle, so they're changing the angle that they have to pass to, and the options of the number of players they have to pass to is increased. This is because passing is an open skill on the environmental continuum, so two passes are never the same due to a change in facility, conditions, situations and different players. I'll progress this drill into having 4 players in a 12 by 12 square. I'll make them pass to each other and moving around the square. I'll then progress this further by having a defending player who puts pressure on the ball, therefore not allowing a large amount of time for the players to decide who they were going to pass to. I'll progress this further by having by moving up to 30 minutes a session, and having introducing 2 more defending players, so it becomes a 4v2 in a 20-yard square this time. But the 4 players have to put 6 passes together in order to get a point, whereas if the 2 defending players win the ball, they're deducted a point. Also, if the incorrect technique is used, then the players are deducted a point. This is the emphasis on quick, short passing, and the purpose of the scoring is for often footballers are need to achieve performers, so they often lack competition. I'll progress this by having a 5v5 game with no goals, but the only way to score a goal is by having 10 passes put together, so therefore the emphasis is on keeping possession, which is like a game situation. I would then retest the pass completion rate in a game after the action plan. The players will benefit from a democratic leader because they're in the performance part of the pyramid. So especially if the player relationship with the leader is strong. The development pyramid is so it's participation, performance and excellence. So the players that I observed will be in the performance pyramid. However, academies of excellence help to improve players' perform to an excellent standard by offering elite coaching and facilities.
Well, thanks Tom, well done.
On this